Hello, my name is Dr. MarkAlain Dery, and I am the Medical Director of Infectious Diseases and Chief Innovation Officer for Access Health Louisiana. You have seen me do these updates now for the past few months, and in conjunction with the leadership of the ACOI, and I hope these messages are actually helping you to keep up with the latest on COVID-19. I know many of you are in the thick of the fight, and I'd like to thank all of you on behalf of us who daily focus on infectious diseases for a living, and certainly on behalf of the ACOI. You see, I live in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I serve as co-chair for the ACOI Infectious Diseases Subspecialty Section. And as we are facing this once-in-a-lifetime global battle, I want to hear from you, my colleagues who are experiencing the fight from their location. So no matter where you are in the country, I provide my contact information at the end of the update, so please listen for that. And I hope you take me up on this invitation to reach out. Now, moving forward together with the ACOI, we will continue to share information as it becomes available, as well as some of the hopeful progress that we are seeing. So let's get on to our first story, and that'll be these mask exemption cards. Oh man, I love it. All right, so as an infectious diseases specialist, I look at COVID-19 as fascinating for a lot of reasons. And as my fellow medical geeks, that's you, in this field can relate to, but I also think that it's turning into a grand social experiment as mask wearing has become strangely contentious, hasn't it? It's weird, right? So I've begun wondering if it's fierce individualism, or there's actually a term for this, and it's what psychologists refer to as reactance. And this sense of this reactance or reactance theory or reactance bias has potentially created this divide that has turned into, for some reason, a mask-wearing controversy. I should put this on right here. Mask-wearing controversy. So anyway, whatever it is, it appears to be driving some people into extreme behaviors, including using fake mask exemption cards in order to get around local and state requirements to wear face masks to prevent the spread of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So it's cloaked as a real government organization called the Freedom to Breathe Agency, and there's a group that is creating these cards for the low cost of $50 for 500 cards. I am super confused. Wouldn't one person need one card, but they're selling them for $50 for 500 cards? I don't know. Maybe you know 500 people, you pass them out to. Not sure. Anyway, these cards not only describe that the person who's holding the card, it describes why they can't wear the mask due to some sort of mental or physical risk, and it may that may cause them. But it also warns the entity, which is typically targeted to be a store or other place that is requiring this mask wearing, that they will be reported to the fake agency. Again, the Freedom to Breathe Agency. And if they insist, especially if they insist that they wear the mask. So some versions of these cards are actually using a legitimate Justice Department phone numbers where complaints about violations can be submitted. The cards also feature a Department of Justice logo. Now note, there are a few things with these cards. There are many misspelled words on the card, and they even reference the Americans with Disability Act, which we all know is not the correct name since it's actually the American with Disabilities Act. Anyway, needless to say, none of these cards are real or endorsed by the government, so please, if you see them or you hear about them, please stop them. They are not real. Okay, now if the ramifications of this card in circulation continue by people who don't pose such a health risk, this would be actually pretty laughable. Yet everything about the idea showing a fraudulent government-issued card to be exempt from mask wearing is really quite reprehensible. And I just hope that not many organizations are fooled by this counterfeit effort. And I hope Facebook and other platforms where these cards are being promoted do the right thing and halt their promotion. Again, folks, this virus, it's here. It's going to be here for a while. While we may be done with coronavirus, coronavirus is not done with us. Mask up, COVID down, please. All right, so let's talk about this cool new testing strategy called pool testing. You guys are probably already aware. This is how blood is screened for blood donations. And so recently you guys probably saw that Dr. Fauci was talking about it. Anyway, he was concerned, and in a recent interview published in the Washington Post, he admits that something's not working in the efforts to control the virus. And so this is prompting some folks to think about this concept of pool testing. And so, of course, pool testing is when we combine people's tests together. And if the tests come back negative, research will know they can move on to the next pool of samples. And if it comes back positive, only then will each individual be tested. Now, this is a method that can potentially help more people get tested and improve the chances of finding asymptomatic individuals who may be quietly transmitting the COVID virus. Now, this is crucial as more and more states are hitting daily records for new cases. Dr. Fauci is also considering whether the traditional tools for fighting infectious diseases, which is identify, isolate, and trace, are even effective because so many asymptomatic people are transmitting the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Now, early on, Dr. Fauci and others stressed identify, isolate, and trace, or what I think we were saying here on this video blog, which was diagnose, trace, isolate. And that was the key to containing the virus and allowing Americans to get on to something resembling a normal life. But that's only true if almost all of the people who transmit virus exhibit symptoms. And research has shown that asymptomatic people seem to account for approximately 40 to 45% of the SARS-CoV-2 infections, and they can transmit the virus to others for even possibly an extended period of time, maybe even longer than 14 days. The level of virus in an asymptomatic person is about the same as the level of a virus who also has symptoms. The likelihood of those who are asymptomatic will remain asymptomatic suggests that the virus might have greater potential than previously estimated to transmit silently and deeply through human populations. So, can pool testing help? I think that it can. I mean, let me just give you a quick example. You know, in terms of a broader disease surveillance strategy, and it's one that allows for regular screening of people who are not symptomatic, again, asymptomatic. So if we can take a large group of folks, let's say a warehouse with maybe 100 employees, and test them, you know, at least in our clinic system, we're going to be doing it weekly, right? So it may make sense for us to do these pool testing, but let's say that we would take 100 folks in a warehouse in our population, about 350 people, and we would test them in samples of about of 10. So we would have about 35 analyses to run rather than 350. And because our folks would be asymptomatic, because if they were asymptomatic, they wouldn't come to work, we would expect that they would be negative, these pooled samples. However, if somebody did show up positive in a pool, then that's when we would go digging in to find out who that individual was. Now, for all the advantages and efficiency that pooling offers, I do want to recognize that there's a downside in that it does increase the risk of a false negative, and that is because if someone does have the virus, that viral load in that individual sample could potentially be diluted when combined with other samples, perhaps to the point where the testing device can no longer detect it. But remember, pooling only makes sense in places with low rates of COVID-19, so workplaces and that sort of stuff. Places where you expect the large majority of tests to be negative. Otherwise, too many of the pools would come back positive for it to work as a useful surveillance tool. So please stay on the lookout for our regular updates, and to read more from the sources used in this report, please go to the acoi.org/COVID-19. Together with the ACOI, we will help you have the latest information to help you respond to your patients and also stay on top of this crisis. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime at madery@macmac.com. Please stay safe. We can do this together.